Cognitive dissonance is everywhere. It really is, everywhere you look. It subverts science, psychology, psychiatry, belief systems, and perceived reality itself. There are historians and a lot of people out there who really preach this stuff without even realizing it. For example, Matt Walsh. He just put out a video called What Schools Don't Teach You About Native American Indians or American Indians, whatever. The sort of documentary that he puts out made the claim that Europeans and Americans were really backwards in their thinking, believing that diseases came from quote-unquote bad air. And these people had no idea about germs, or what in reality is quote-unquote germ theory. Strangely, and practically in the same breath, 30 seconds later, Matt Walsh speaks about two British officers and a trader who wanted to spread smallpox to the American Indians through blankets, coming up with the idea to give these blankets that had been in smallpox hospitals to the Indians. And this whole narrative brings up a pretty large and glaring question. What do blankets have to do with bad air? If Americans and Europeans believed that diseases came from bad air, what good would giving the Native Americans some smallpox-infected blankets do at transferring the disease to the American Indians if they believe this? There is a lot wrong with this. Things I won't get into in this video, but this is just one of millions of examples of cognitive dissonance right in front of you. So I want to talk about the mental health narrative and what a lot of these people out there preach. They have you back in Coke and Pepsi. It's either a Bigfoot mystery, a UFO mystery, an alien mystery, or it's mental health, and you have a mental problem. It's one or the other, and they get you going back and forth and put you back in the Coke and Pepsi realm, right? So Missing Enigma, the guy who is sponsored or was sponsored by BetterHelp, I believe he still is, he keeps making the claim of mental illness over and over in a video. It's a video about a young girl that goes missing in the woods, like a missing 411 kind of thing, where she just kind of vanishes, right? And I want to talk about that. It's very, very important, because people who talk about or shill for the mental illness narrative have either never spent a day in their life really researching it, or they are completely ignorant to the subject, or they're being completely paid to promote the idea of mental illness. There is no other possibility, because even spending a week going into the entire history of mental illness would be enough to seriously rock the core of their misguided beliefs. Now, what I'm going to do is show you some clips from this Missing Enigma video. Just a few clips. It kind of explains what this girl was going through. So she's this spiritual chick, right? And a lot of insecure people get into this kind of thing. People who become weak mentally. The stronger you are mentally, the less you do that. A weaker person will try to look at their horoscope or whatnot, and that just happens. It's just the way it is. And I've been watching this my whole life happen. So anyway, she begins to hear voices, which is totally blamed on mental illness. It's really weird when you think about it, because these people believe that you are totally normal one day. Think about yourself right now as you are, and tomorrow you just snap. It doesn't happen, and we're going to get into that later, but let's go over what she was going through here.
Maureen offered to make food for everyone, and they insisted if she was going to cook for them, then she should put on some clothing first. She did so, and then later removed them again. Eventually, Maureen began talking about hearing voices, and became insistent on going on her spiritual journey. Later on Sunday, while she was packing up to leave the campsite, Daisy saw Maureen leaving wearing only a fanny pack. The Skamania County Sheriff's Office received a report of a missing or overdue person at 12:50 a.m. on June 10, 2013. The initial information that was provided to them was that a 19-year-old female Pacific Islander was going on a naked spiritual quest and taking only a fanny pack containing a lighter, compass, and pocket knife. Maureen's friends explained what had gone on during the camping trip and how Maureen had waded across the river naked. The deputy asked if Maureen had been taking any drugs while they were there, and Angelina said that she had not. She explained that Maureen was on probation and was being drug tested, and she was clean. The deputy took the note that Maureen had left for her mother and read it. It said, Mama, I know you're probably freaking out, but please don't be scared. Understand that I am safe and protected. I am watched by many good spirits.
Okay, many good spirits. That's what a lot of this crap does to people. It comes on to different people different ways. There's only so many scripts, right? And it's sort of a Mad Lib script that will change according to whatever. And people like this get attacked this way. It comes on as a force of good to do something bad. And I'll get into that later and we'll discuss it a little bit more. But it's very, very dangerous. Probably one of the most dangerous things because people believe this crap is good when it isn't.
This is a time where you and I both need to be strong. I have a destiny. Angelina told the deputy that they had recently been reading a fortune teller type book and that the message Maureen kept getting from it was to follow her path. Beyond that, Maureen kept telling her friends that there were spirits speaking to her, and they were telling her to go.
Okay, this is what happens in every one of these. Every single one. These people are either talked to, attacked, and scared, or coaxed. In this instance, she is being coaxed to do something completely insane, like go off into a rugged national forest naked with a fanny pack on, with a compass and like some matches or something, right? Now, this is the kind of influence that these spiritual people get. They have people out there telling them that the symptoms that I talk about for ELF hypersensitivity or RF hypersensitivity or EF hypersensitivity, all of it. They are taught that these are good symptoms, that you have, higher vibration people around you, spirits, right? That kind of thing. It is totally, completely dangerous. Let's check this out.
Let me share some simple ways that we actually receive this information. We all have the ability. It is simply a sense, a muscle, and you probably already are receiving information and guidance from your team members.
Team members.
Some of the ways that we receive our information via clairaudience is a thought that pops in our head.
Intrusive thoughts. So she's describing intrusive thoughts as a good thing when they are anything but.
So many times we just actually think that these are our own thoughts that we're making up, but they're not. They are actual thoughts that are just inserted in your head, but it's your clairaudient muscle. It's your auditory sense, your psychic hearing muscle.
Really?
And also some people actually have ringing in their ears. That's a huge symptom of clairaudience. When someone steps into your energy field but is at a higher vibration than you hear the ringing.
Oh my God, dude. So ELF causes ear ringing. Ultrasound can cause ear ringing. Artificial tinnitus. That's what we're talking about. And this person is convincing weak people like this Pacific Islander girl. They're teaching her that this is totally a higher spirit next to her when her ears are ringing, when it's a problem. If your ears are ringing and you have artificial tinnitus, it is artificial for a reason.
Instead of actually the voices. Or you can actually, some people receive, it's almost like you jump into a pool and then it's like you feel this sensation that you're underwater. Those are also sensations that you might be receiving some information.
That's ear pressure, like negative pressure in your ear or positive pressure, negative pressure. That's bad. That's from frequency, not spirits. This is insanity. And weak people are looking for this type of information. It's very, very bad. But what I want to get at here is you have Missing Enigma, David Politis, and all these different people pushing the mental health narrative in this zone. All of them are doing it. And they are against each other. But they still push the mental health narrative. Then you have the paranormal people, and David Politis is talking about paranormal and recently started talking about voices too. But he's also pushing the mental health thing since what happened to his son happened, right? Which is totally, totally dangerous because mental health is not what it was. It's not what it was. And I'm going to get into some advice for people, but I want to show this to you. Like I said earlier, people who talk about or shill for the mental illness narrative haven't spent any time researching it, or they're completely ignorant, or they're getting paid to do it. Period. Mental illness was something completely different up until around the mid to late 1960s. People were committed not for being crazy. People were committed for being lethargic, talking back, being antisocial, stealing, resentment towards their parents, resentment towards their husband or their wife, etc. Movies like Shutter Island attempt to reframe the past as though it had modern style cases like the movie depicts, right? And it's total and complete propaganda. Here's the difference between the past mental illness and now. You know, someone experiences something in their life and their behavior changes because of it. This could be lack of affection or their parents not buying them new shoes or causing them to steal or become delinquent, all the way to someone being blackballed from a job and coming to the conclusion that there was some conspiracy against them, which is kind of actually true. Now, the symptoms start first and create the narrative of mental illness. For example, a person is totally solid their entire life, and out of the blue, they begin to hear voices well into their life, you know, past the schizophrenia age, right, with no previous signs. The voices will then tell them that there is someone in their life or hint around about it, and they're told that this person is trying to destroy their life or that they're trying to kill them or whatever. And when they begin to believe it, they begin repeating what was told to them. It is ass backwards. They didn't begin to have delusions. They started hearing voices, the worst symptom of quote-unquote schizophrenia on record, out of the damn blue. And the voices set the tone for everything. Okay, this was from 1951. Someone was in a mental home, right? And he was in a mental hospital. Why? Because he was hearing voices? No. Because people were pushing him around and he had no backbone. Listen to what they say here.
And thereby gains insight into the nature of the illness.
His art.
This patient worked in clay. He was too compliant. Anybody could push him around. What he thought of himself is shown by this first self-portrait. Childlike and undeveloped.
Childlike and undeveloped. That was a mental illness.
It took him 6 months to admit his illness.
That's his
By calling
illness.
this inner strife, he frankly admitted that he needed help. It was a long while later that he developed the large aggressive piece.
So he became more aggressive in the mental hospital. He developed a backbone, and so he wasn't mentally ill anymore. That bears no resemblance to modern mental health, and it doesn't stop there. So check this one out. This is very important because they are digging up the good ones. They're extreme cases for the documentaries.
At such clinics, the psychiatrist is customarily assisted by a clinical psychologist and a social worker. To them come cases like that of Martha Warren, 15 years old.
Mrs. Mars, what do you have on the Warren girl?
Her father, Thomas Warren, came to us 2 weeks ago and told us about their difficulties.
That Martha see a doctor, but that very night the girl ran away from home.
Oh, she ran away
Finally,
too.
Martha came back.
So this is all mental illness stuff. If that's the case, everybody now is out of their damn minds. See, they change things over time.
But again she stole some money, this time from her mother. The clinical psychologist, through a series of tests, sought better understanding of her problem, a clue to why she was stealing money. When she came to talk to the psychiatrist, Martha was almost sullen. By her terse answers, she made it plain she didn't want to be cooperative. Using patience.
This was a mental illness back then. This is what mental hospitals were for. You have to realize that. It has nothing to do with what they're talking about today. That wasn't until the 1960s.
From tact, the psychiatrist slowly succeeded in breaking her shell of indifference.
This is a psychiatric documentary from 1951.
But your mother does have to work, doesn't she?
I guess so. But why do I have to do all the dirty work? Keeping house, I hate it. And I hate my mother for making me do it.
Your mother is tired when she comes home?
I suppose so. But why doesn't she make my brothers do some of it? Oh, they're too good for that. She's always on their side.
How do you mean, Martha?
Well, after the fire, we got the insurance money. We all needed new clothes. My brothers just got about everything they wanted. But when I'd ask for anything...
So she had to start stealing stuff, and that drove her to delinquency, which makes her mentally ill back in 1951. For crying out loud, man. That, let's find a schizophrenic or something, right? Here's another one from 1952.
Or afraid or worried, you've got to let it out or it'll come out some other way. Like you losing weight, not sleeping. Now, what is it, son?
Gosh, Dr. Martinson, this may sound kind of funny to you.
No, it won't.
I don't think my folks want me anymore. They're planning to get rid of me.
What makes you think that, son?
I heard them say so one night. They thought I was asleep.
Oh, is he hearing voices? Let's find out.
I got a chance to talk to Tommy's mother about it, and it turned out that they'd been talking about sending Tommy to camp for the summer.
Oh, so he overheard them talking about sending him to camp and freaked out. That's mental health back in 1952. All right? Now let's go to the hardcore mental health stuff from 1953.
The spotlight focuses on these people. Many patients are old, and often theirs is a tragedy of hospitals such as this. The tragedy of fathers and mothers too old to work, rejected by their own children, classed as senile and committed to mental hospitals because there's nowhere else for them to go.
Okay, so old people were sent to psychiatric hospitals instead of nursing homes. So a large population of mental health hospitals were just old people. Wow. How does that compare to today? It doesn't. It is not even the same profession. It's clinically completely different.
Yet, given proper care, they can still adjust, make new friends to ease the passing of years.
This is ridiculous.
Many are capable of limited adjustment, able to work at varied tasks within the hospital. There's the veteran returned from years of service overseas.
Okay, so he's got PTSD from, he's freaked out. Let's get rid of that term, PTSD. He's still acclimating back because of what he experienced. That's what happens to the human mind.
The farmer who had never set foot outside his home county till he came here. They come from all sorts of homes, these patients, all kinds of backgrounds. But somewhere along the line, life became too much for them. The majority, however, come by court order, committed either by a judge or a six-man jury.
Okay, here comes the big one, right? So, what did this guy do? What's going on?
This was the case with Fred Clanton.
Fred Clanton? Oh, yes. How are you, Fred?
Well, I'd be all right if they just let me alone.
Okay, all right. If they just let me alone, we've got one. Is he hearing voices?
Well, why don't you tell me about it?
You can't fool me. I know you're in with them, too. They're turning my wife, Betty, against me. They're taking up all her time.
Okay, so his complaint is he thinks people are turning his wife against him and they're taking up all her time. Interesting. Is this even mental illness? Because a lot of people complain about that. She gets around a bunch of single girls that are talking her out of a marriage, trying to get her to divorce him, taking up all his time. But it's crazy. And then they talk about rehabilitating him.
You have to stay around the hospital for a few days. Maybe we can find you something to do here. Oh, how would you like to help us out around the hospital here?
Oh, free labor. So they're talking him into free labor. So the labor fixes him mentally.
I don't know whether there's much I can do or not. We have quite a few jobs that you might do.
See, it was nothing like modern mental illness from the mid-60s on. Mental illness is not what it was, period. People were not hallucinating and having problems like that. They just weren't. In fact, I can tell you a story, unless it was from a physical condition. I had a great aunt who I never met. This was long before I was born, probably 15, 20 years before I was born. And this was through marriage, so she was not blood relation. She was just a great aunt. She was having spells where she would freak out, and she would start, cooking weird food. They'd come home and find a pot of water with, peanut butter in it, and just, these weird ingredients, and she was making dinner. And they put her in a psychiatric clinic. And then she would get out, and she would be totally normal, and she could not figure out what was going on. Then it would happen again. This happened 5 times, right? Then she died. She got sick and she died. They did an autopsy on her. And what they found was 5 dead brain tumors. Now, what was happening was the tumor, for some reason, was growing. Then it was pushing on the brain, causing her to do weird things, bizarre things. And then the tumor was dying for some reason and shrinking back down. I don't know how this was happening, but it was happening. They found it in the autopsy. It happened over and over. So all of this was caused by something physical. Now, post-60s, this was all due to external factors, like this guy.
In mid-2004, though, things would begin to change a bit. In June, he starts to bring up hallucinations he's been having. He would wake up at night and hear and see strange things, and also the feelings of derealization he's been having, along with saying that he can't trust his own mind.
They had nothing like this before, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. They have known that radio frequency does the exact same thing as drugs or anything else. They've been able to put voices into people's heads since the 60s, since the mid-60s. There are earlier cases even, but they've been able to do it since the mid-60s, getting better and better at it. And they've known that these radio frequencies can do the exact same thing as drugs. Whether you're hearing voices or not, the other people that go missing in strange cases, RF, radio frequency, electrical fields, magnetic fields, ELF, they can create dopamine dumps in the brain and even amplify the production of GHB. Radio frequency can do anything a drug can do, and they've been publicly talking about this since 1985. This is a CNN article from 1985.
This scientist, who did not want his identity revealed, is employed by the U.S. government and has done secret RF weapons research. Tests done with the LIDA and similar machines prove that humans are susceptible to remote alterations of mood and awareness.
Certain kinds of weak electromagnetic signals work exactly like drugs. And so the promise is that anything you can do with drugs, you could do with the right electromagnetic signals. Apparently, there are specific sites involved, specific functions involved. It's a matter of matching up, just like it is with a pill or a drug, to cause and effect. You could have a cause and effect relationship between a magnetic field and a biological function.
So human beings are completely susceptible to this. Michael Aquino talked about it in Mind War, talked about ELF frequencies, and everybody knows this, except the public doesn't want to admit it. They want to live as though they're still in 1950, but people are just hearing voices and shit for no reason. It's madness. It's absolute madness. Here's a pretty normal channel, like a normie type channel, talking about Michael Aquino.
Maybe this paper is only advocating the use of naturally occurring conditions to encourage a state in which targets are more open to democratic ideas. If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. If you're suspicious, Aquino's footnote about ELF waves won't do much to ease your mind. He writes, ELF waves up to 100 Hertz are once more naturally occurring, but they can also be produced artificially, such as for the Navy's Project Sanguine for submarine communication. ELF waves are not normally noticed by the unaided senses, yet their resonant effect upon the human body has been connected to both physiological disorders and emotional distortion. Infrasound vibration, up to 20 Hertz, can subliminally influence brain activity to align itself to delta, theta, alpha, or beta wave patterns, inclining an audience toward everything from alertness to passivity. Infrasound could be used tactically as ELF waves endure for great distances, and it could be used in conjunction with immediate broadcasts as well.
So we're not going to get into Michael Aquino, and I don't want to focus on him. I'm just citing that people knew, everybody knows, they wanted to use it to influence people. The most dangerous situation that you can have is a weak person who is waiting for some type of guidance from higher powers to begin hearing this type of sound. These are the types who put lots of stock into the ideas of vision quests and fortune tellers, horoscopes, tea leaves, Eastern Indian-style swamis, spirit guides, Hollywood-style ghosts, demons. I could go on and on. They all fall into the same pot. And if you call this type of thinking and behavior out, these people will just assume that your mind is closed off and you are incapable of understanding the true reality of our world, right? Without ever understanding that you very well could have held the same beliefs at one time in your life, right? For example, I had way too many strange experiences in my life to count. Usually, someone who has had these types of experiences would have been out there searching for answers, whether that be the paranormal, dreams, whatever. And at one time, I was seriously invested in EVP, which is short for electronic voice phenomenon. So I spent years recording these EVPs and trying to figure out what it was and what it meant, studying cases, looking at the geography around these cases, trying to make sense of everything, all of it, right? And years ago, I was up late recording with a friend, and when I drove him home around 4 a.m., I left the recorder rolling as I made this 40-minute round trip. When I got home and replayed it, you could hear people talking lowly in the recording, as well as like cans falling, like beer cans almost, as if there was a party going on. But no one was there. It was a house that was isolated enough that this just couldn't happen naturally at all. So I studied that for quite a while too, as well as other recordings after that, with each one boggling my mind even further on how this was happening. Then, some years ago, I began to see like an uptick in these EVPs. It seemed like every 3 or 4 recordings I made had some type of anomaly in them, no matter what it was, but something had changed. I would hear strange sounds in these recordings, serious anomalies. You may hear what sounded like a shortwave radio warbling, from signal to transduced audio, but always talking or always what sounded like maybe chanting or an orchestra tuning up. Never music, full-on music, never a commercial or anything that you would hear from a radio. These were open-air recordings anyway, right? But nothing ever alluded to any kind of commercial radio or TV interference at all, and still hasn't to this day. Weird vibrations, swells in ELF where there should be none, areas where lots of voices seem to be overlaid over each other. It just got weirder and weirder. When you'd hear a sound, it was almost like a trigger. And I mean like a musical trigger, like when someone is using drum pads that electronically trigger another sound. When you would hear a sound, it would sound as though there was another sound riding behind that one, just a few decibels behind it, lower. And right around that time, the paranormal really started getting hyped by the mainstream media. And that made me take pause for a good reason. And the more I researched it, the more I got into it, the more I realized that this was all man-made. And I didn't want to believe it, but I had to go where the evidence took me. And the evidence has taken me to where I am now and where I have been for a long time, for at least the last 14, 15 years, that this is completely and totally man-made. And people are not hearing natural voices in their heads. Their minds are not becoming sick. Their mind doesn't start acting like they have a conjoined twin living in their brain talking to them. It's ridiculous. And along with this, there was no such thing as serial killers. They didn't even have a name for them. They called them spree killers. But all of this stuff grows and evolves strangely and coincidentally as the technology evolves. It's absolutely absurd to believe in either the mental health narrative or the spook narrative, because neither one of them have stayed the same for the past 30 or 40 years, even 20 years. It's constantly evolving. They vote mental illnesses in. These are not some clinical thing. They vote them in, they drop them. Even PR companies come up with mental illnesses for drug companies. They just make this stuff up. It's madness. If you are experiencing tinnitus or voices or any of that, anything that has to do with your inner ear, pressure, whatever, it is man-made. It is not something that naturally happened, unless you were blowing off cannons next to your head for 30 years. You know, it's just madness. And I want to give some advice here. Like that girl that had, voices talking to her, that talked her into going into the woods and basically dying out there, never found. If you are hearing something like this, It is all false. It is all meant to either freak you out and cause you to do something really stupid, or it is meant to deceive you, like this girl, into believing that it's a good force. You have spiritual advisors and good spirits around you telling you what to do, and it's all good, man, right? None of it's good. If you buy into it, you are going to end up screwed. So you need to ignore it, completely ignore it. And believe it or not, if you ignore it and really ignore it and believe and know that it's bullshit, a lot of people will basically become unentrained and they won't hear it anymore. Like, I know people that were hearing it a year ago and quit paying attention because they realized it was bullshit, and it goes away quickly. But here's the tricky part. When they get around a fan or road noise or whatever, for a while they can still hear the talking or mumbling or rambling of these things. When they get around that type of noise, a vacuum cleaner, an air conditioner, a refrigerator motor, right? Any of that, they can still kind of hear it going on. So it's still there, chatting and rambling on, even though you can't hear it. What does that tell you? It tells you everything that you need to know. Don't listen to it. It's bullshit. And that's it for now. Look out for Charlie.